the first thing I need to do is to introduce Katie Thomas from the local enterprise partnership, the York and North Yorkshire local enterprise partnership, who's going to talk on the Yorkshire strategy and business cases for circular economy. And the reason we've got Caroline Conroy here from Too Good To Go is because she's going to cover one particular aspect of that business case. So without further ado, can I hand over to you, Katie? I'll remove my slides and let you carry on.
Brilliant, thank you, Peter. I'll just share my screen now. Here you go, hopefully you can all see that. So I head up the low carbon and environment team at the York and North Yorkshire Lab. Thank you for joining today's session. Okay. So I'm going to talk through this afternoon with you initially a bit of background about how I got interested in the circular economy. I'm then going to talk to you about our ambition to be carbon negative and our circular economy strategy, and critically as part of that the role of systems change and our approach around that. I'm then going to hopefully bring the circular economy to life for you all with a handful of case studies from our area. And then I'm going to go on to some of the lessons that I've learned working in the circular economy. And then I'll hand over to Caroline, who will tell us about the amazing work that Too Good To Go are doing, trying to reduce food waste and the new partnership with us as well. So I'm sure a lot of you are quite familiar with this diagram, but just as a quick refresher, and for those of you that are new to the circular economy, I just wanted to start with a brief explanation of what it is. So we say at the moment we have what's called a linear take, make, dispose economy, where we're taking lots of materials out of the ground, making things out of them, and then as consumers or as businesses we often use those products for quite a short amount of time and they end up in the bin, or we have assets that we waste. So that might be cars that are on our drives, even more than usual during the current times. It might be clothes that we have in our wardrobe that we don't wear. It might be rooms in our house or office space that is really underutilised. So we waste quite a lot of things in our current economy. We then have a recycling economy, which is a tiny bit better than a linear economy. When we recycle something, with a lot of materials, you can only recycle them a couple of times, and each time they're recycled, they're downgraded, so they have lower value. So the circular economy is a complete step change in this, where we're redesigning processes, products and systems to really eliminate waste and make sure that we're making the most of everything that we have. So a good way of looking at this is in nature there is no waste, and that's what we're trying to replicate with the circular economy. So I first became interested in the circular economy when I was studying my Masters in Sustainability and Business. And I quickly realised that for a lot of businesses, sustainability stayed on the outside of what they did as a core business. So businesses might have been putting some electric vehicle charging points in their staff car parks, might have been putting some recycling bins in their offices, they might have been looking at improving the recyclability of their packaging for a product. But the core of what that business did, whether it be selling, making a product, selling a service, actually remains unsustainable, having a negative impact on the environment and potentially on people as well. Whereas for me, the circular economy provides a new way of looking at things and a new business model that really puts sustainability at the heart of what a business does, so that it can have a really positive impact on the planet and on people. And I'll be going through some of those circular business models later on in my presentation. And for me, the circular economy is very much about transformation, but that's not to say that we can't take small steps to get there. So my first role in the circular economy, finishing my master's, was leading the ambitious circular Peterborough programme. And I can remember quite vividly on my first day there, sitting down at my desk and thinking for the first time that my role was to lead this ambitious programme, which aimed to ensure that Peterborough was the first circular city in the UK, and that I was the only dedicated resource to do this. So it's quite the challenge straight out of university. But the approach that we developed in Peterborough was really about creating the enabling conditions for a circular city to flourish, which is a really important lesson, that as a city, local authority, you don't have to do everything. It's about creating the conditions to thrive. So this meant breaking down what's quite a complicated concept of the circular economy into what we called the 7 R's, shown on the left here. So thinking about how we can redesign, repair, share, reuse materials and resources, and making the circular economy really easy for businesses to understand. Also making it easy for people and organisations to be part of the circular economy. So we developed a sharing platform that allowed organisations to swap and share resources, whether that be car parking spaces, meeting room spaces, people's skills, or old office or IT equipment. So really trying to make it easy to minimise waste. And also looking at the ambitions of the city and the role of local authorities, public procurement in aiding that transition to a circular economy. So that's a lesson that really brought forward when I moved up here to Yorkshire just over 2 years ago now, to really kickstart the low carbon and circular economy work here. So critically, what was quite different with this approach is that it was at a sub-regional scale. So I'm sure many of you have heard of circular cities, such as London, Glasgow, New York, all with ambitious plans and roadmaps. The difference with our approach is that we're actually looking across urban and rural areas. So we encompass the city of York, the coast of Scarborough, our vast rural areas, and our market towns. And actually through having this larger scale approach, we can really try and create these circular systems and close the loop on material and resource flows, and really start to address some of these systemic challenges that we face, and some of these are shown on this slide. So it's quite a different approach that we took. And also what's quite different is that the local enterprise partnership is playing a key role here. So LEPs can be seen as almost the bridge between councils and central government, playing that middle local government role. There's, I think it's about 38, 39 across England, and our remit is really to support economic development and economic growth, and to build partnerships between the public and private sector. And we have a number of teams within the local enterprise partnership. We have a skills team that supports ensuring that our businesses have the right skills in the economy to thrive. We have a business team that supports businesses to innovate and grow. We have a delivery team that supports infrastructure projects and investment in these. When you think about all these different teams, these are essentially the building blocks to build a circular economy. So there's a huge role here for LEPs to really drive this low carbon and circular economy agenda. And we're one of the first LEPs to do this and to develop a strategy and to enable this. Another key thing about our approach is about having this systems lens. So in our circular economy strategy, we have a number of priority sectors, which include food and agriculture, manufacturing, transport, construction, utilities, and the public sector. But we also consider the importance of having a place-based approach, which has been incredibly effective so far in the delivery of our circular economy strategy. So actually looking at a smaller community or town scale to embed circular economy principles. So the need to move towards a circular economy has never been greater. We continue to consume our planet's resources faster than they're being replaced. We're heading into a climate crisis, despite the small decreases in greenhouse gas emissions from the impact of COVID. But critically, COVID-19 has shone a light on the fragility of our supply chains and our whole economy. So there really is a need for change, and our economy is ripe for disruption. And the circles below here show some of the symptoms of our economic system not really working. So we have less than 60 years remaining of topsoil, a third of all of our food is wasted across the value chain. Pre-COVID, the average office is empty between 35 and 50% of the time. So I'm sure that is massively increased in current times. The average car in Europe is stationary for 92% of the time. So you can see from all of this that our system isn't particularly effective, and it doesn't quite meet the needs of everyone. So the circular economy provides not only a huge opportunity in helping us achieve our carbon targets and reduce our impact on the planet, but it's also a massive economic opportunity. So clean growth sectors in our region are growing 4 times faster than any others, and the circular economy presents the biggest clean growth opportunity in North Yorkshire and in West Yorkshire. Global investment is ever increasing in sustainable finance, and the potential for us to move towards renewable energy and implement more energy efficiency measures could save us nearly £1 billion in energy bills in York and North Yorkshire, which is obviously huge. And the opportunity now, with concern for the environment at an all-time high, particularly we've seen with COVID, a greener recovery really is at the front and centre of the public and of businesses and governments' minds. So our ambition, when we launched our circular economy strategy at the end of last year, was to be thriving as a carbon neutral circular economy. Since then, we have actually upped our ambition to carbon negative. So this means taking out more carbon emissions than we're emitting as a region. So this is really taking into account the role of DRAC, scaling up their innovative carbon capture, usage and storage technology, and also our vast natural capital assets. So thinking about the potential role of increased woodlands, restoring our peatlands, and moving towards regenerative agriculture to actually lock in carbon. And with this, we believe that our region has a significant, if not the most significant, role to play in achieving the UK government's net zero targets. And we've been doing a lot of work over the last few months developing our COVID recovery plan for York and North Yorkshire, and developing this ambition for a greener, fairer, stronger economy in line with our recovery. And the circular economy is very much at the heart of this and a key route that we will be achieving this ambition. So the scale of the challenge to get to carbon neutral by 2034 and then beyond carbon negative by 2040 is absolutely massive. So we recently undertook a study to understand kind of what we would need to do to get to carbon neutral. So on this slide picks out some of the quite shocking stats from the study. So for transport, we need to halve the number of private car journeys in our area. And in the process of doing that, that means increasing walking by 50% and increasing cycling 9 times compared to what it is today, and doubling the capacity on public transport, which is obviously even more difficult in our current situation with COVID. For buildings, we need to retrofit 250,000 homes and install 270,000 heat pumps in York and North Yorkshire, which equates to 58 per day. Which is a massive uplift what we have in terms of the levels of heat pump installations at the moment. For land use and agriculture, one of the probably most transformational sectors in terms of change, we need to restore all of our peatland because that's currently actually emitting carbon. We need to plant 38,000 hectares of trees, which equates to almost doubling our current woodland area. And we need to change our diet to reduce red meat consumption, which predicts a reduction in red meat production in our area. For power, we see a massive uplift in renewable energy generation. For solar PV and onshore wind, that means doubling our current capacity this year, and then each year up to 2030, seeing an uplift of that level. There's an absolute massive change that needs to happen for us to meet our carbon neutral and carbon negative targets. So for this, we really need systems change. So systems change is all about understanding the root cause of problems and not just seeing what's on the surface. And a great example of this is the work of toast ale. So over 40% of bread in the UK is wasted. And toast brew beer from surplus bread that would otherwise go to waste. So on face value, you might see that as more of an end of pipe solution in terms of just seeing that problem on the surface of the iceberg. But when you actually dig a bit deeper into the work that Toast do, their work is actually much more transformational about systems change. They work with their consumers and their beer drinkers to nudge attitudes and behaviour to actually value food and prevent waste, which is all about changing the mindset of consumers, which is key, which is a critical issue in our food system. And 100% of their profits go back into charities that are helping to fix our food system, and they also are working hard to set the bar higher in the beer industry and became the first beer company to be certified as a B Corp, so really setting higher social environmental standards as a leader. And our approach for systems change is really at the heart of our circular economy strategy. So when we were developing this, we worked with our stakeholders to identify across those key sectors that I mentioned before, what our current systems look like. So looking at the resources that go into systems, the rules, so the ambition, the goals, the social norms, the culture, consumer behaviour, and then the roles of the different actors in that system and the relationships between the actors and what results, what was coming out of the system. So looking at that from a current as is perspective, and then looking at imagining if that was a circular system, what that would look like, and looking at the differences between those and understanding from that where are the weak points in terms of where can we actually leverage that systems change to get us from our current linear system to our circular system. And that's how we developed our key parts of our circular economy strategy, which a summary of that is shown here. So looking at the parts that we could potentially influence in our role as a LEP and working closely with our partners. So the first part of that was really understanding systems and identifying those kind of core circular economy opportunities, and then looking at how we could enable collaboration and leadership across the area to lead that transformation. Thirdly, capturing and sharing best practice. And then building the skills that we need for a low carbon and circular economy, and then delivering with partners what we've called our circular beacon projects. So those are the projects that really bring the circular economy to life and make the circular economy tangible to people, measuring impact so that we can continue to build momentum with the circular economy. And making sure that we continue to have buy-in, and then accelerating change. So looking at the policy, looking at accelerators and investment required for the circular economy. So I won't go into any more detail about the specific actions that are set underneath that, but I'm sure Peter can share with your action plan, which shows kind of more detailed actions under what we've called our system change levers. And at the heart of this approach is very much about making the business benefits really clear. So these are our 6 business benefits for the circular economy. So some of these are about reducing costs from energy and waste, becoming leaner and more efficient, developing products with purpose that have that real social environmental purpose, and future-proofing your business to make it resilient, which is obviously incredibly important in current times. So we have recently been developing some e-guides and support businesses realise these opportunities. So they will hopefully be going on our website shortly if you are a business that's interested in this. We've also, in partnership with West Yorkshire Combined Authority, got a SME support programme which is geared at supporting SMEs become more resource efficient and adopt circular economy models. So again, we can share details of that if that is of interest as well. But I'm now going to go through a few examples just to bring the circular economy to life in terms of some case studies from our region. So there are a number of business opportunities from the circular economy in our area, because we are quite rural and have a vast manufacturing base. We've seen a lot of opportunities from businesses starting up and moving to our area from our food and agri waste streams, in particular potatoes. So there are 2 companies that I'm going to quickly talk through here. The one on the left is Conscious Co. That started making gin from surplus potatoes that would otherwise be going to waste. And the other one is Chips Board, that their business model is all about taking bio-based waste streams and making bio-based products out of them. And in our area, they're working with McCain's to take their surplus, their waste potato peelings, and making a range of innovative bio-based products out of them, from sunflowers to equipment for events. I'll just skip through that one. Another example from a gin distillery from our area, which is a really interesting example showing how quite small steps can add up to really make a difference and really to make a mark as a sustainable business and to gain more customer loyalty, from Cooper King Distillery. So they source all of their energy from renewable sources. For every bottle of gin they sell, they plant a square metre of woodland in the Yorkshire Dales, and they also offer a gin refill scheme. So you're able to go back and ensure that the glass isn't wasted. So they're doing lots of small things that really add up to make a difference. And in COVID, they use some of their surplus capacity in their distillery to make hand sanitizer. So you can see these circular businesses being quite diverse and adapting to current circumstances. Another example from a collaborative project in our area is Your Space at the local green site in Acon in York, which is a community-owned bio-based housing development. And circularity has really been designed in from the outset here, with how the spaces have been designed to maximise the use of space. They've even thought about having additional capacity, different spaces when people come to visit, and making sure that the buildings are built to such a high standard that they're actually locking in carbon and being super energy efficient to ensure that they're not going to have a negative carbon impact by being made through materials such as hemp. So before I pass you on to Caroline, I'm just going to end with a few lessons that I've learned from working in the circular economy. So firstly, big but plan small. So it's definitely incredibly powerful to have a big vision and ambition that can unite stakeholders. We've definitely found that with our carbon negative ambition. But having such a big ambition can also be a bit overwhelming and paralysing. So it's really important that you actually plan small and act small. So make sure that you're not letting your big vision overwhelm you and stop you from doing anything. For us, we could spend the next 5 years mapping out our resource and waste streams and developing a perfectly circular model for Yorkshire, but then we wouldn't actually be delivering any action. Secondly, find your leaders. So this is incredibly important, to find those people that can lead projects and initiatives, those people that can convene stakeholders and really get things moving. So here I singled out a lady called Sue Jefferson, who I think is on this webinar, and she's been incredibly amazing at spearheading the Circular Malton Initiative, which aims to create the UK's first circular market town and a future masterclass, and will actually be focused on the Circular Malton project. But here you can see how she's really convened some key stakeholders in Malton and started to bring the circular economy to life with some key tangible projects. So one of those, which is just getting started now, is around an innovative anaerobic digestion facility, and they're currently mapping out different waste streams that could go into that, and then have community owned anaerobic digester powering the town. So thirdly, be resilient. Working in this area, if you do sustainability, I'm sure you'll know it's incredibly tough. Particularly for us, so like my team over the last 6 months, we've had a number of different setbacks, and I would just say that when you do have setbacks, to look at what you can learn from these, and actually the more difficult things are, the more resistance you face, it usually means that you're getting further, and you can almost take that as feedback that you're moving forward and you're on the right track. And for me, as you can see from the pictures, I'm a trail runner, and I sometimes compare it to this in terms of sometimes you just have to think about putting one foot in front of the other with moving forward. And finally, importance of collaboration. So it's impossible for one organisation to become circular on their own. So for Circular Yorkshire Month, which is in November, we have an amazing range of stakeholders involved, all working together to raise awareness of the circular economy and to support collaboration. So we have a number of webinars coming up. You can go on our website, you can go on circularyorkshiremonth.com to find out a bit more about that. We'll have our e-guides that I mentioned launching there as well. And we'll also have a number of different social media campaigns that you can get involved in and also help you promote the circular economy in your own organisation. So on the note of collaboration, I will now pass over to Caroline for her to talk to you about Too Good To Go and our recent collaboration together.
Thanks, Katie. So let me share my screen now. So I don't know, some of you may know Too Good To Go, some of you may not. I will start by introducing myself. So I've worked here for only a few months, but it's a brilliant company. I live in Malton, which is how I actually heard about the whole Circular Yorkshire initiative and how we became involved, because as Katie mentioned, Malton is going to be a kind of case study for the kind of Circular Yorkshire economy as a whole. So we had a bit of a meeting, found out we had a lot of synergy and common goals with our businesses and our kind of vision, what we wanted to achieve. Obviously, circular economy looks at reducing waste, of all kinds, but food waste is a big part of the problem. Katie mentioned a few different food waste initiatives that are going on. We can help with any kind of food waste that is still edible. So what I will take you through today just is a little bit about who we are and what we do. I'll then go into a bit more detail about our app, which is how some of you might know us, but we do also do a lot more around food waste other than the app as well. And then look at some of the results too. So this is just to reiterate that food waste is a big problem in the world. We waste a third of all food, which is quite a shocking amount, I think. The biggest problem, I think, on this slide, or the most shocking, I would say, is the environmental, which says that 8% of, so according to the drawdown report, 8% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from food waste. And that is more than the whole of the aviation industry. So the aviation industry is about 6% on the whole. And this is not food production, this is solely food waste. So avoidable. I mentioned that we have an app, obviously. Most of you will know us for our app, but we do actually work with our 5 different pillars. So we work with businesses, not only through the app, but also by creating and supporting industry initiatives which challenge the status quo. Unfortunately, food waste has been long accepted as a kind of inevitable byproduct of hospitality and food businesses, and we want to change that. We also work with households. So we do a lot of work, mostly kind of social media stuff, hints and tips and videos, working with families on raising awareness of the food waste issue. Food waste actually costs families around £700 a year. So obviously, the more we can reduce it, the more money people will save. And we give individuals the tools in order for them to make sure that food gets eaten and not wasted. So different things you could do at home. Check out our social media if you want to find out more. And I mentioned our marketplace, our app. This is what most of you will know us for. We work with businesses and consumers through the app. We'll go into more detail on that later when I start talking about the app and how it works. We work with schools and obviously universities. Young minds are the greatest weapon in building a food waste free future. We're trying to make the younger generation better than we have been, basically. We try to get food waste onto the curriculum of schools across the country. We also have materials and things to use in lectures and lessons as well. And then public affairs. So we work with a lot of governments trying to change policy. It's the planet's, I would say, one of the planet's most pressing issues is food waste. And as such, it deserves to be really at the heart of environmental policy. And we try and work with influential figures to ensure that this is the case. So some examples of how we do this and what we do. I'm not going to go through each one, don't worry. Schools and universities, we have, as I mentioned earlier, our knowledge hub online, split into age groups. So please feel free to go and have a look at that on our website. There's lots of useful information on there, as well as quizzes and kind of some fun stuff. We also have things like initiatives like the food poetry competition. So we're trying to get children engaged with the movement. We launched this food waste themed poetry competition this year, earlier in the year. DEFRA actually was a key partner with us in this. So they sent a letter out to every primary school in the country to encourage participation. Obviously, we work with universities as well, not only by contributing to lectures and seminars, but we also actively encourage universities to join the app, so student canteens, as well as any kind of food business that is on campus. So we work with a load of universities across the country, but some examples, actually Warwick Uni, UCL, King's College London, for example, and hopefully York Uni as well. So another example of what we do across different pillars. So this actually is working across public affairs, households and businesses actually. It's our date labelling campaign, which we will be launching in this country later on in the year. So confusion around date labels is a major driver of food waste. We are trying to lead a coalition of brands in order to kind of clarify, educate and empower the general public. So we're looking at brands to clarify this information on their packaging. So you'll see there are some examples of the brands we've already got involved. We have run this campaign across Europe already. So Carrefour, Arlo, Unilever, Carlsberg, we've got 70 brands already that have reworded their packaging and are encouraging consumers to sense check whether food is safe to eat rather than relying on the label itself. And like I said, we will launch this in the UK later this year. So our mission is to inspire and empower everyone to fight food waste together. As Katie mentioned, you know, it's small steps and we need to make it simple. I think Too Good To Go is a really simple way for people to really make a big difference, whether that's businesses or consumers. So a little bit more about our app and how it works and some numbers. We are fairly large. We are in 15 countries now. We've just launched in the US this week. Huge food waste issue over there. We're in 14 European countries. And in the UK, we've got 3 million users on our app. It's actually closer to 4,000 businesses now. In Yorkshire alone, we've got 308 stores on the app. We have saved over 115,000 meals. And we have over 33,000 users in Yorkshire alone. So there is scope to do a lot more with food waste in Yorkshire. It is a simple solution. As Katie said, you know, we need to have simple solutions for businesses as well. Businesses are, you know, trying to get people to change is difficult, and food waste is not, unfortunately, a high priority for businesses. They've got a lot of to-do lists and a lot more priorities. So we try to make it as simple and easy for people to make a difference as possible. Some businesses that we work with nationally here, we also, to make it a little bit more personal to you guys, we work with Regency Supermarket and George Hudson Street in York, so Doe in Bootham as well. And more recently, we've got on the app a series of one-stop shops in Scarborough run by a group called the Wilson Group. How it works. So we've got in the middle there a magic bag. So it's called a magic bag because you don't know what's going to be in it. Stores don't know what they're going to have as waste at the end of the day. So the idea is that by not listing it, it gives the store the flexibility they need to put in genuine surplus food at the end of the day. An individual then would reserve this bag and then pick it up and have a nice surprise. The only stipulation that we've got on the app is that the food is 1/3 of the full retail value. So as a user, you know you're getting a really good deal as well. Some examples of how it works in store. This is me, excuse the mask, it was COVID related, obviously. This was the launch in one of the one-stops in Scarborough, so I was there on the launch night. This is all of their food waste, so it was 10 bags in total. We actually, as a team together, we ensured that the store had their first ever zero waste weekend. And the Wilson Group, which I mentioned earlier, who has 10 stores, now want to become a zero waste business. So we're working together to get them to achieve that. And we call it a win-win-win. So really it is win for businesses because they cut down on waste, they reach new customers through our app. We have a survey that says 2/3 of customers actually return as full paying users to the store. And then they win back some costs. So not only do they gain some costs for the food waste itself, but they reduce their waste removal costs as well. The users, obviously, it's a win because you get delicious food for 1/3 of the price. And the planet, obviously, everybody wins because it's helping reduce the CO2 gas emissions. And finally, some results then. So the most important one on here, I think, is that 90% of food from the magic bag is consumed. So by default, a magic bag, by definition, sorry, a magic bag is food that would have otherwise gone in the bin. So that is 90% of food that would otherwise have been thrown away is now consumed. So the more businesses we can get on the app, reducing their waste this way, and the more consumers we can get using the app, then the better for the planet as a whole. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, obviously Katie mentioned that it's a huge problem. We have a massive climate change issue. And as an individual, it can feel a bit daunting and overwhelming sometimes, and a bit, you know, what can I do to help? Nothing I can do will really make a big difference. If you just save one magic bag a day, every day for a year, so that's only one bag, then that is the same as preventing the amount of CO2 it takes to drive a car from Land's End to John O'Groats and then back again. The drawdown report did say that reducing food waste is the most immediate and impactful action an individual can take against climate change. So doing small things does matter. It does make a big difference. And finally, the best result is it actually feels good. Fighting food waste feels good. Eating food feels good. And that's everything. So I think now I'll pass back over to Katie or Peter, who I think we have a Q&A session now.
Going to say, I was hoping Peter was doing the Q&A.
I am, and I've got too many screens open, so I apologise, I couldn't find my microphone. Right, we've got a poll about to start, and as I start the poll, I'll get the questions ready for the speakers. So if you, hopefully you can see a poll that is now on the screen, and I would welcome you to respond to it. Where are you in your journey? We'll let that run, and at the same time, I'm going to put some questions in the chat that are going to go, it'll appear to everyone, and I'll read them out. The first one is to Katie. Katie and Caroline, we've got lots of questions, so I'm probably going to be quite economical with the time and what I ask. But the first question is, Katie, which stakeholder group would you say it's most difficult to get involved, you know, to influence policy, local government and so forth? Name the hard one.
Well, that's a difficult question. I'm just wondering what the rationale behind it is. I think for us, we definitely adapt how we reach different stakeholders. And for us, we tend to split our stakeholders into what we call kind of anchor institutions or intermediaries, those organisations that are quite large, so our local authorities, intermediaries such as the Federation of Small Business, Chamber of Commerce, so that we can reach those smaller businesses that sit underneath those larger organisations. And then our SMEs, which we tend to reach through our Growth Hub, which is our business-facing element of the lab. So I wouldn't really say there is a hard, was there a, I guess I can't get any feedback from the person asking the question, did they have something in mind? I'd say our biggest challenge with getting to carbon neutral is that we're so reliant on central government policy, and that there is a massive reliance on us working with government to influence policy, and massive policy uncertainty at the moment. So not necessarily our hardest to reach stakeholder, but perhaps our hardest to influence stakeholder is probably central government at the moment.
And it's a quick and easy one for Caroline. Give us a plug for the app again, please. So somebody was asking what's the name of the app.
It's Too Good to Go.
Too Good to Go.
Very simple.
Very simple. Do a search on Too Good to Go in the store.
Yeah.
The next one, Katie, what happens to toast bread? my screen's moving. What happens to, when the bread waste levels drop below a level that the raw material is not available? Is that discussions that you've had about? It's great people are using things, but what happens if their source dries up?
Well, that's actually Toast Ale's mission, to go out of business, to fix the food system so that there isn't a need for them. So that's to what extent they've got a social and environmental purpose. But I think we're probably quite a long way from that point.
Right, I'm going to end the polling. So I'm hoping you can all see what people have replied with. So there's a lot of people. I don't know whether Katie, you want to comment on that, but is that what you're expecting, that people are interested but just very early stages?
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think particularly when we're engaging with SMEs and local authorities, that's where most of them are. So just another plug for the resources that will be going online shortly as part of Circular Yorkshire Month. So you can go on circularyorkshiremonth.com or our Growth Hub site for the guides based on those 6 business benefits, which are very, very simple steps on getting started on the circular economy.
That's great, and I've put another question in the chat, this time for Caroline, about people's preferences. If they're vegetarian, is that part of the app? How do you direct the right food to the right people?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Obviously, the app isn't vegetarian because not all food waste is vegetarian. However, some, and quite a lot, increasingly more places are solely vegetarian or vegan. So if they are solely vegetarian or vegan, stores or shops, restaurants, manufacturers, then we can guarantee that it will be vegetarian or vegan. If a shop or restaurant, whatever, does both vegetarian and non-vegetarian, we can put 2 profiles for items on the app, so a vegetarian one and a non-vegetarian. So there's different ways we can work around it.
I should have put this question up earlier, about the language, and I think this one's directed at Katie, but Caroline might have an opinion on it as well, about the language that we use regarding waste, and whether it's the right sort of language, and the way we engage with the public on that use of language.
Yeah, definitely. I think we need to stop using the word waste and shift to materials and resources. I know our team still uses the term waste because that's the term people understand, but I think in a business context, that the quicker we can move towards talking about that as materials and resources, the better.
Yeah, and we use the word surplus as well, instead of waste a lot.
Great. I've got so many more questions. I'm going to disappoint lots of people, but if it's okay with both speakers, I'll carry on until the hour. So we've got another 5-6 minutes of questions, and then I'm just afraid we'll have to cut it. But the question to Caroline is about the food waste, and is that global food waste and global aviation? So what's the origins of your figures?
Yeah, so it's the drawdown report, which is global. So it's the food waste being higher is a global. And globally waste 1/3, which is awful. It's closer to 50% in America as well, which is terrible.
Okay, it's interesting, the regional variations. Right, I'm putting under pressure. I'm going quickly now. Katie, great to hear about the focus on natural capital for carbon capture and climate resilience. Have you found the conservation sector are working together with you? So who are you partnering with, and particularly conservation sector?
Yeah, so this piece of work is only really just starting. And actually my team has shifted from being just focused on low carbon and circular economy to actually being recognised as covering the environmental agenda more broadly only over the last few months. But we are working really closely with colleagues in the environment team at North Yorkshire County Council, our local nature partnerships, Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, to start developing some projects to reach those very ambitious targets that I set out of what we need to do in terms of tree planting, peatland restoration, regenerative agriculture. So that is very much just starting, and for us it's working out what our role in that is as a local enterprise partnership, with more of a focus on economic development, but where we can add value and not duplicate effort.
Another question back to you, Katie, again. It's about training. Have you been successful in providing training that's aimed at providing jobs in the circular economy sector? Just how successful, competitive are the circular economy companies that you work with?
Yeah, so the skills side is something that we're only really just starting. So working closely with our skills team, we've just commissioned a piece of work to look at the skills needs for a low carbon circular economy, and that compared to the current supply of training in our area, and identifying skills shortages and also the demand at the moment for those skills. So that work is forthcoming. So based on the research, we'll develop a plan to move forward with that. And in terms of the second part of that question, just how successful, competitive are the circular economy companies that we work with? The circular economy companies that we work with, like Cooper King, that I mentioned, and Clevelandsdale, that I skipped over because I didn't think I had time to explain what they do. But these often tend to be those really the most innovative and have been the most resilient businesses during COVID, and have really adapted their operations and sought new opportunities. So I would definitely say that they are some of the most successful and competitive in our region.
I haven't got a question for you, Caroline. It's just a comment that's come through, and saying, well, thank you very much. The final, two quick questions, one both to Katie. Peatlands in Yorkshire, where are they about?
That might be one that I have to handle offline. It's quite vast. It's not kind of one specific area. Okay. So I can send you some, well, I can send whoever the question's from some further details, if that would be useful.
And finally, Katie, I've put a huge question up for you on the very last question. I will summarise it as there's a competition between we've got to grow, we've got to take care of the economy, but there's a tension there, and how can you look at reducing carbon emissions at the same time there's all these pressures to grow and create jobs and so forth? So I will leave that big question with you. If you've got time to answer it before we have to say goodbye to everyone.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting during what's happened, or the impact of COVID, that our lab and our team have battled with whether economic growth is really compatible with our climate change ambitions. But then I think we've seen with the loss of businesses and loss of economic activity that I think we'd all agree now that we do need economic growth. And I know for us and across the UK and across the world, organisations are coming out with visions for a green recovery. So I think there is a real opportunity here, but we need to make sure that we have the processes set up in place to ensure that projects that we're supporting and plans that we're developing have a positive impact on the climate and not a negative one, because it's great to have that ambition, but there's no point having that ambition if you don't actually deliver on it. And that's the gap for us at the moment. We don't have the process in place, so that's a big piece of work that we'll be doing as an organisation to make sure that all the projects that we're investing in aren't going to have a negative impact on our climate change targets.
Right, thank you. And I'm just going to make the comment to Caroline and see what she reacts to. But I would have said implicitly, you are doing this by growing and creating jobs. I know in some ways you don't want to grow, but implicitly the job creation is helping you achieve those aims. So
yeah, absolutely. And we're only 4 years old as a company actually, and so to get to the stage where we're at is excellent because we've grown hugely, but it also just really kind of highlights the problem that is out there and the issues that we need to tackle. Kind of our ambition really is to make ourselves almost obsolete, to try and make a world without any kind of food waste at all. And on that note, if there is anyone listening that has any questions about the app or would like to get in touch, Peter's got my details. So if anyone wants to get in touch, either from a user point of view or a business point of view, if I can help with anything, just give me a shout.
Wonderful. Thank you both very much. Thank you for such an interesting hour. And in some ways, apologies for those people who are listening, but also thank you to those people who are listening. It was so interesting that I just wanted to carry on, but I have to cut it at some point. And a thank you to you both for various reasons, a very interesting couple of presentations, but also you've achieved our highest numbers of audience ever. So, so thank you very much. So I want to formally end it now. I always do a quick advert, and you can see on the screen, we've got presentations roughly every week. And the next one is from Keith Rizell from Sales Marvel, talking about value propositions. Then we've got an Inclusivity Matters series on inclusive leadership. And our next circular economy presentation is in about a month's time, and it will be on our events page. So we'll make sure you get to know about that. And what I will do is I'll extract all of the questions that have come through on the chat and share them with our speakers. And so if there's any thoughts they have, we'll share them back with everyone. But just finally, once again, to say thank you both very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for organising.